Thanks, Lescan. And I'm delighted to warmly congratulate Deputy Willie Penrose for bringing forward this important bill tonight, the Broadcasting Amendment Bill 2016, which will insert Section 65A into the Broadcasting Act of 2009 and provide for a quota of at least 40% to be allocated to Irish music or musical compositions that relate to some distinguishing element of the culture of our country. It has to be said, of course, when you look across, I suppose, Irish music down through the decades, it's a phenomenal pantheon of achievement by our musical artists. You could spend the rest of tonight up to midnight reading out names of great men and women who have contributed to the artistic life and culture of our country. The U2s, The Script, Phil Coulter, Paul Brady, Van Morrison, Joe Dolan, Dickie Rock, Sinead O'Connor, Hosier, Walking on Cars, Snow Patrol, Niall Horanton, Lizzie, Enya, Damien Rice, Glenn Hansard, the Pogues, the great Christy Moore, Aslan, Nathan Carter, George Murphy, Paddy Casey and the great Damien Dempsey from my own constituency. They'd be just a tiny fragment of the men and women that have done so much for our artistic life. And I think to protect that and to develop it, and particularly in the new challenges that we faced in the digital age, it is critical that our 34 stations give that amount of airtime to Irish music. I meant to mention also, of course, a great man from your own party, Lascan and Shanador Laura Muraku, and of course the work of Kyotos, Kiltori Aaron, down through the decades, who again did a phenomenal amount to teach instruments to our children. I think also of the great O'Dwyer family of the Beara Peninsula, some of my own relations, and the great tradition they and so many thousands of Irish families represent. I mean, when you look across, I think, and think of our great musical heritage, and also the other large English-speaking countries, they relentlessly push their own music. But our smaller EU partners and many other states in Latin America, Africa and Asia deliberately insist on good playtime on the radio and TV networks for their musicians. I think of South Africa, for example. I think that has a 90% limit or insistence in terms of music, and I believe we should move in the same direction. And then if you think of great national musical traditions around the world, for example, the great musicians of Mali, or of Cuba or of Jamaica, it's incontrovertible that major airplay on local stations played a huge role in building up these traditions and encouraging and indeed supporting those artists. I know in modern times, I've said, there's also huge issues with the power of IT companies like Apple, Google, YouTube, Spotify, and the downloading and streaming of music and the benefits then which just accrue to our musicians. That's something this House will also have to look at, I think, in the years to come, and the fact that musicians often get such very small returns for brilliant composition and playing. Down the years, of course, there have also been huge issues with protection of copyright and royalties for Irish composers, especially in traditional music. But it does, as I said, I do agree with the approach that Deputy Penrose and the Labour Party have taken in this regard, and by bringing such a group of our great musicians into Dáil tonight to publicise the bill. It's a small but necessary step, I think, to cherish our musical heritage and to foster a love of Irish music for generations to come. And Deputy Pringle mentioned, of course, the new policy, the creative policy that the government has launched. But, Minister, that will need resources, and already my own constituency, Lascan, possibly like in your own, we have huge efforts being made by great community activists like Miss Finola Young to ensure that every single child in every school will have a musical instrument and that they will all be musically literate by the time they get to adulthood. But I do think we should have a total emphasis on our music and pushing it first and last in all the genres of which our musicians are so brilliant. Thanks.